Brand new series, same three guys. And with that being said, welcome to the A-Day edition of 16 and Counting Touchdown Alabama Magazine's premier football show, live from the friendly confines of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. As always, as we enter season 3, I'm joined by my two favorite people, Maxwell Taylor and Ivan White. Fellas, we've seen a national championship prior to us meeting today. How you guys feeling?
Good. I don't know what that means. Of course we've seen.
The town's still riding on the waves. I mean, obviously when you get another national championship in Tuscaloosa, it's big. But it's funny that people are already asking when 17 coming. No, it's March, and we won it in January. But that's Tuscaloosa for you, ladies and gentlemen.
The Alabama Crimson Tide did pick up national championship number 16 this past season, and quarterback Jacob Coker and running back Derrick Henry, two huge components of that, as well as linebacker Reggie Ragland. A lot of departing pieces from last year's group heading into this season. And first of all, let's just start off with Jacob Coker. Maxwell, here's a guy that came in from Florida State in 2014, had a lot of lofty expectations put upon him, but when he really started to settle into the team, settle into the offense under Saban and Kiffin, and especially after the Ole Miss game last season where he almost had that epic comeback, you started to see the maturation of Coker.
Yeah, and I think we're saying the maturation of Coker because he didn't play as much college football as, say, most transfers do. I think he was as prolific as a college football transfer as Russell Wilson was when he was transferring from NC State to Wisconsin. It was that viewed of how big his transfer could be. It obviously wasn't as huge as Russell Wilson in his production on the field, but he did get what he came here for, and that was a national title in 2016.
Did do that. Jacob Coker passing for 3,110 yards, 21 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Ivan, you've always been a big component of the running game ever since the big Jaworski lane at Texas A&M. And we bring up Derrick Henry, a guy that completely shattered records last year, 2,219 yards rushing, a Heisman Trophy, becoming Alabama's second Heisman winner in program history. To really break him down, how significant truly was he last year? Because prior to Alabama really scraping the playbook and going back to the run, Lane Kiffin was trying to do the same things he did last year with what he did with Blake Sims in 2014. When he was able to get back to the run, how helpful was it?
I think he's probably one of the top 5 most important players of the past 4 years for the Crimson Tide. And I mean that in all honesty. He's a player that not only can you say he broke records on the field and that he was a great character off the field, but that he also was a person that you could say kind of set the mold, because not many running backs are built like Derrick Henry with that height and that speed. And even in his pro day, people saw that he could catch out the backfield as well. And I think something like you saw with O.J. Howard, Coach Saban said he wanted to utilize him more. I guess maybe that's something Coach Saban can go back and say, well, maybe we utilize him a little more in the passing game. But like I said, now you see running backs like Bo Scarborough come up, same kind of build, same kind of shape. And normally they would have been either changed or they would have been had a little bit of trouble getting into that position and running back and actually starting. But when you see players like Derrick Henry with that size and talent caliber, you can tell that this can work. And I think he's opened the door for a lot of other running backs that are a little larger than other running backs but can still make moves in the open field.
Alabama also having Reggie Ragland and Ryan Kelly depart. Reggie Ragland, a big-time linebacker, Ryan Kelly, a 3-year starter at center. But something that Saban's always a keynote speaker on when it's time to hit the reset button and focus on this year's team. And this year's team coming up in 2016-2017 has a lot of returning pieces. But number one, something that everybody wants to talk about is the quarterback competition. For a third year in a row, Alabama trying to locate a competent player to be its signal caller. 4 guys in this battle, Maxwell: Cooper Bateman, a redshirt junior; David Cornwell, a redshirt sophomore; Blake Barnett, the Tuscaloosa favorite right now, the redshirt freshman from Corona, California; and true freshman Jalen Hurts from Channelview, Texas, that actually emulated Deshaun Watson in Alabama's prep for the national title game. Now, ESPN college football writer Chris Lowe was here in Tuscaloosa yesterday, got a chance to talk to Nick Saban, and Saban told him if the season was to start right now, Cooper Bateman would be the guy under center. But our Alabama fans are a little bit too worried right now of the situation, knowing that it is spring ball and a lot of things can happen between now and fall camp.
I don't think Alabama fans should be worried. I felt like the fan base was more worried 2 years ago when we were going away from McCarron. I think finding his heir was what people in Alabama were most worried about. But I think now, after having gone through this quarterback competition of Blake Sims, the quarterback competition of Jake Coker, I think they feel more comfortable with the offensive staff, working with the quarterbacks and making them work with the system. Jake Coker wasn't a perfect quarterback at the start of the season, but he was able to keep Alabama in contention, and be able to, progress enough to where he could be a quarterback and a weapon for this team down the line. And that's something that kind of A.J. McCarron wasn't his first year. He kind of deferred it to Trent Richardson a lot. And Jay Coker did do that in the meat of the schedule of the season. He did defer the rock to Derrick Henry a lot. But when you go to the championship game and you see his stats compared to where he started, I shouldn't say he had a really good Wisconsin game. So he didn't start bad, but he definitely, in the first 3 games going into the Ole Miss game, he definitely had a kind of a drop off. So it was definitely interesting to see. Going into this year, I think you've got a lot more, I guess, more confidence in the staff because they've worked with these prospects for longer than just a year. I mean, Blake Barnett's been here for 2 years now. He's run the scout team. Cooper Bateman was the backup to Jacob Coker, started the Ole Miss game. Things didn't go how they wanted it to, but they were confident in him to give him the start on pretty much the biggest game of the season at that point. You've got David Cornwell, who's done some good things in the past, but has gotten on people's bad side and people's doghouse last year, but seems to be coming on strong this spring. Really, what we're looking for and what Nick Saban is looking for and what he usually always is looking for in his quarterback is consistency. A guy that's going to keep the drive alive instead of trying to make the big play that might cost the minute turnover.
And also, I'm looking forward to that guy that can drive the football downfield and move the team. And Maxwell, you bring up a good point. It's about consistency. And for the first time in Alabama, since Saban has been there, you're not just replacing a quarterback, but you lose your top 2 bell cow running backs. This has never happened before in Alabama, going back to 2008 with Mark Ingram. It was Mark Ingram and Trent. Mark Ingram left, you still had Trent, and you bring in Eddie Lacy. They've always kept 2 strong running backs. For the first time, Alabama lost both Derrick Henry and Kenyon Drake. Now, Bo Scarborough and Damian Harris, the 2 that look to continue the trend. From the quarterback standpoint, you almost have to look at whomever wins the job, whether it's Cooper Bateman, Blake Barnett, David Cornwell, because it's still early, it's still spring ball. But you look at who do you have to throw to in this deep receiving core, you kind of almost, Maxwell, have to take some shots because despite the physicality of Bo Scarborough, he's 6'2", 230, despite Damian Harris playing with a lot more maturity, mentally, you just don't know how to take either of the 2.
And you've got a lot of transfers coming. Well, one transfer who's really high profile coming in, be a receiver, Garrett Dieter, coming out of Bowling Green in Cleveland, Ohio. Not Cleveland, but close to Cleveland. You get the point. It's a good mix of talent that's been here and talent that could be explosive in an offense that is predicated around what Lane Kiffin does. You saw it a lot during Blake Sims' year. I mean, just the quick passes, being able to get some players out into space and let them do the work for you without having to just throw the ball through some tight windows. So the offense is going to have its continuity even without the run game with players like, as you said, Robert Foster coming back from injury, O.J. Howard foregoing the draft and coming back for his senior season. I mean, there's just a lot of potential on this offense to really be probably the best Nick Saban's ever had at the Trapstone.
And also keep in mind Cam Sears returning from injury, Davon Charlotte, and Derek Keith continuing to grow up the depth chart. And who can forget Calvin Ridley and Ardarius Stewart, the 2 leaders from last season. As we flip to the offensive line, Ivan, a lot of moving pieces. We mentioned earlier Ryan Kelly gone, Dominic Jackson gone, but Cam Robinson's back, and though he's recovered from a shoulder surgery, still helping the guys in spring ball at left tackle. At left guard is an interesting story because you have Bradley Bozeman, but also Lester Cotton, who has really started to grow battling at that position. Rush Pierschbaker has taken it upon himself to shift from left guard to center. And now on the right side of the football, Alphonse Taylor, though he's been battling some weight issues, still looks to be the guy going into the fall. And at right tackle, it's the freshman from Folsom, California, the #1 offensive tackle in the country, Jonah Williams, who's just been spectacular. As we look at the offensive line, new coordinator and Brent Key coming in from Central Florida. Mario Cristobal, still some contact with the offensive line, with the tackles. But who have you seen, Ivan, going into A-Day and ultimately into summer workouts and fall camp that's really stepped up in your mind on the offensive line?
I would say that I probably have to be Lester Cotton, because he's a player that I thought could get a role, but not this early in the spring. I thought he would actually work his way up through the summer and maybe through the fall you would hear a little more shocking news from Lester Cotton, but he's breaking a little more strides quicker than I had thought. Obviously, he's going to be a fan favorite once he starts starting, once he starts getting a lot of playing time from Central High here in Tuscaloosa, and I'm really impressed with him. But like you said, going to the rest of the offensive line, Alabama's been through this before somewhat. I know, like you said, there's been some changes with the staff, but they have had to replace Barrett Jones, which is one of the best centers in Alabama history, and now you have to replace Ryan Kelly. And I'm not saying it's very simple, but this team and Coach Saban has a way of finding that next person that can take the role and step up. And I think the center position is one of the more underrated positions on this entire team, because if you look at historically who's been in that position, it's been some of the more focal players in all the rosters during that year, especially during national championship years. So I look forward to Lester Cotton hitting the field, but I also want to make sure that center position stays the team leader and stays the person that can make sure that the whole offense moves as a whole.
Rosh Pierschbaker, as I mentioned, is making the jump from left guard to center. I got a chance to speak with him in player interviews earlier this spring, and he talked about how he was always around Ryan Kelly, learning from Ryan Kelly, making sure that he knows what to do, how to call out the Mike linebacker, get everybody set on that front line. But as we go down to the defensive side of the football, that loses pieces. We mentioned Reggie Ragland, but also DJ Petway, A'Shawn Robinson, Jonathan Allen in the secondary, guys like Geno Matthias Smith, Cyrus Jones. But it also returns a guy that's been there before, and Jeremy Pruitt was here from 2007 to 2012. Of course, it loses Kirby Smart. But as we look at Jeremy Pruitt, Maxwell, he's a player's coach. The guys have kind of warmed up to him a bit, that teacher mindset. We'll get on you if you get out of line, but does have that teachable mindset. What does he bring more so to the table that Kirby Smart may have lacked, if anything, when he was here?
I wouldn't say Kirby Smart lacked a lot of things. I think he made every player here a technically sound linebacker or a technically sound defenseman. I mean, they watched tape religiously and they went through the rigors of spring practice just like any other NFL head coach, I believe, from watching them. But what I think Jeremy Pruitt brings to this program is attitude. I think we really lost a lot of that when he went and left for Florida State to become their defensive coordinator, and the same for when they went to Georgia. He brought some attitude to those defensive sides of the ball. And I think with playmakers like Minka Fitzpatrick returning, Eddie Jackson after the season he had at safety being able to return and be in a prominent role in our defense, Deshaun Hand being able to work himself up out of the depth that was the defensive line last year and become a starter. I mean, there's just so much where this defense could pick up from where they left off with, but it's going to be hard to match the production that they made. I mean, the linebackers, Reggie Ragland was possibly the best linebacker in college football, and I mean, he was probably the best college linebacker in college football for 2 years. So to be able to go and replace him with Reuben Foster, who's had some time, but you don't know if he can take on that leadership ability. Plus, you're also breaking in new inside linebackers like Rashawn Evans and Sean Dion Hamilton this year. So it's going to be difficult to see what the defense is going to be like, but I do know from seeing them at spring practice that they do have a lot of attitude with them.
Alabama does return its 3 top pass rushing, or its 3 top sack leaders from last season. Jonathan Allen, who had 12 sacks last year, Timmy Williams, who had 10.5, and Ryan Anderson, who had 6. Those 3 make up 28.5, of Alabama's total 52 sacks, which led the nation. As we flip this finally to the special teams aspect, Ivan, Alabama returns Cole Mazza, long snapper, kicker Adam Griffith, punter J.K. Scott. But in the return game, you lose your top 2 guys, Cyrus Jones and Kenyon Drake. Saban talked about Calvin Ridley and Xavier Marks, the 3-star from Rosenberg, Texas, 2 guys that can really take on that role on special teams. Adam Griffith redeemed himself last year, went from making 63.2% of his kicks in 2014 to 71% last year. Of course, had the great onside kick recovered by Marlon Humphrey. What do you expect from the special teams this year, especially with Bobby Williams, now the special assistant to Nick Saban, and Burton Burns, the Heisman-winning running back coach, now working with special teams?
Well, I know this is going to sound a little weird what you said, being so many offensive components coming over there, but I also think that the defensive intensity, like Maxwell spoke of, will prove, I think that's going to show up on the special teams as well. I think a lot of those players are going to be running downfield down there. I think they're going to pick up that intensity from the defense because they are the guys that set the tone out there before the defense even gets out there. They have to make sure that they send the first message, and I believe that intensity, I think you're going to see an overall new atmosphere. I think it's going to be the same Crimson Tide team you see out there based and everything. It's going to be crisp and run correctly, but I think you're also going to see a team out there that wants to show people that, you know, we're not getting tired of winning national championships. The fire still burns in there, and I think that's something you're going to see on the special teams. I think you're going to see people flying down the field. Now, I'm not 100% on board with Calvin Ridley being the main return man because I just don't feel like you should put your number one playmaker out there like that to get hurt. But then again, with such a deep receiving core that the Crimson Tide have this year, I don't want to say you have a little wiggle room, but I will say you have a little leverage to at least put one of your big playmakers. We saw a team like Florida last year put their best playmaker, kick returner,
right.
And it obviously
Antonio Callaway.
And it obviously worked out for them. So maybe if the Crimson Tide to try somewhat of that here in Tuscaloosa, maybe it can be successful for them as well.
Maybe it most likely could be. This Saturday, Alabama will have its 10th annual A-Day game under head coach Nick Saban, who's been doing this since 2007. The game will take place, as I mentioned, this Saturday, April 16th, at Bryant-Denny Stadium at 2 p.m. Central Time. ESPN will have the call. There will be a fanfare at 8 o'clock in the morning, the Mercedes-Benz fanfare. A lot going on. Jacob Coker, Derrick Henry, Reggie Ragland, and Ryan Kelly, the 4 captains from last year's team, will get their handprint and their cleat print on Denny chimes. There will be a Hall of Fame flag football game, an alumni quarterback challenge. Just so much excitement going on as we get to the fall season in hopes and an expectation for a push at a 17th national title. Guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, as we get ready to sign off, how pumped are you for A-Day, and are you more pumped for the season than A-Day?
More pumped for the season than A-Day, because, you know, that means it's going to be, well, it actually counts.
Obviously more pumped for the season, but A-Day is your first chance to get a glimpse of the football team and see what they've got going out there this year, and it's also a great chance to see some of those new up-and-comers, because in previous years you've seen players like I forgot the name. Say
TJ Yeldon, Mark Ingram, Julio Jones step up there and make big plays. But this has been all the time we have today on the A-Day edition of 16 and Counting, Touchdown Alabama Magazine's premier football show. For Maxwell Taylor, Ivan White, I'll be yours truly, Stephen M. Smith. Enjoy the A-Day festivities. Enjoy your weekend. And until next time, folks, so long, everybody.